May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be pleasing to you, O Lord. Amen. So today is the third day of Christmas, and my true love gave to me 3 turtle doves, 2 French hens, and a partridge in a pear tree. Now, who's going to clean up the mess? For some of us, it's been a strange Christmas. We hunkered down at home, had dinner with just ourselves or a safely chosen few, or by Zoom with our families. There are those who may not be able to be with us this morning because of the AT&T outage. A different Christmas. This week is kind of the low-key week between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. It's a time for reflection. This year has been challenging for many of us. The pandemic, the election, the economy, and a roller coaster of uncertainty. All this hung in the balance. For Ethan and me, we have dealt with the added challenge of rebuilding after the Easter Sunday night tornado. Even with all this, there is a palatable sense of hope. Today's reading continues the Christian and Christmas message, one of hope, even when hope is nearly lost. With COVID rates and deaths at record levels, we are clinging to that hope. We look back with a sense of relief that 2020 is over and look forward with a sense of cautious optimism and hope for 2021. In our reading from Luke this morning, the main characters are not so much Jesus and his parents, but 2 people who have been waiting for this moment in the temple. Simeon and Anna were promised by God to see the child of light and redemption for all people. And when that day arrived, they were overcome with joy and praised God that God's promise came to fruition. We live for hope. Even in this most memorable and terrible year, even hope might sound naive. Some say audacious. It might sound out of step with the reality of a pandemic, with racism, and with a world and nation deeply divided. Some hope is deeply personal. We hope to gather with family and friends for a birthday celebration or anniversary, or any special occasion for that matter in this upcoming year. We hope to be able to hold the hand of a grandparent while getting lost in shared memories that ends with the intimacy of a hug. Some of us may say, don't just hope, do something. The cynics amongst us even may say, all the hoping in the world won't change anything. But to hope also takes courage. To this, Michelle Obama stated, you will not always be able to solve all the world's problems at once, but don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. But there's another way to imagine hope. If someone we trust makes a promise, the future is no longer a complete mystery. There are certainties in their word. They have made a commitment. The experience of having confidence in a promise is the experience of living with hope. God has made promises to us. The birth of Christ child is one such promise. I understand what it means to wait on God's promise. After moving to Tennessee, a few classes shy of my MDiv at the Pacific School of Religion, I worried about not being able to finish my degree. The issue was this: PSR required all fees and account balances be paid in full before a student enrolls in the next term. My balance was high. I did know that my credits were good for 3 years. The clock was ticking, and I prayed. I went to work in the customer service department at Lowe's. I worked hard and made about $250 a week. I calculated that to work there, I would need to work at Lowe's for about 2 years to pay off my debt. That realization was a low moment for me. But I prayed and I worked. One night, and I remember this so very clearly, I was praying for guidance. And I distinctly heard a still small voice that said to me, "You will be in class." Though I may not have understood the voice at the time, the voice itself was unmistakable. It was a surreal moment. It was a promise of hope. And it gave me renewed determination. Yet the clock was winding down. And then two things happened. First, I received a letter from a lawyer in LA telling me that I had a balance in a 401k I contributed to when I worked for a Silicon Valley startup. I wondered what happened to it. I was required to move or liquidate the account. So I calculated that if I cashed in the 401k and paid the tax penalty, I would reduce my balance to under $5,000. Wow, that would do it. I was in the clear. Keep working, keep paying. And I also knew that in that upcoming fall, my credits would start expiring. And just as I saved enough to make the last payment with change to spare, I received a cancer diagnosis. This was serious. I now had to make a choice between surgery or school. If I chose the surgery, there was a 99.9% chance of full recovery. The longer I waited, the percentage dropped precipitously. The cost of the surgery would take all that I had left, everything I saved for school. And I was so close. I was crushed. My hope abated. After much thought and prayer, and with a profound feeling of grief, I chose to have the surgery. And then the second thing happened. A friend of mine heard of my Sophie's Choice and sent a check to me to cover the balance of the PSR account. She expressed hope in me. I was incredibly grateful at her generosity and recalled the words of that still small voice. I registered for school 8 days before classes began. In the 3 years I had been out of PSR, they ramped up a robust online program. I was able to take classes online. I graduated from PSR in 2015 with my MDiv. We have received the promise that God is with us, Emmanuel. We are loved beyond measure. Each of us has a story of having to wait for something, with a promise of the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, of good news. It is a promise of hope. As a chaplain resident at Erlanger, I was assigned to various ICU units as part of my rotation. One night, while I was on call, I was paged to the cardiovascular ICU. The patient, Jane, was very depressed. There were unfortunate complications in her recovery. Jane wanted words of comfort. But most of all, she wanted hope. No empty promises, just my presence. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear." If we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today. I visited with Jane 2 or 3 times a week for several months. She had her ups and downs. But I felt that Jane had hope, no matter the outcome. I was there to say goodbye to Jane as she was discharged from the hospital. She was going home. That is the power of hope. We can take hope into action, even in the midst of this pandemic. There is always someone who needs hope, to be shown what hope looks like. Whether it is a food box, a card, a word of encouragement, hands on a window, or holding a phone while a patient Zooms with family or friends. Words have meaning and the power to do good. Our inspiration and creativity put into action make hope even more powerful. Jonas Salk once said, "Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality." Doing something to brighten someone's life is like shining light in the dark. One light can make a difference. I'm reminded of the lyrics to the song "Go Light Your Word" by Bryce, which Patrick will sing later on. And thank you to Patrick. The lyrics go, "Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world." Can you imagine if each of us shines a light, how much a difference that will make? Desmond Tutu reminds us that hope is being able to see that there is light. So pilgrims and friends, let us then shine our collective light to others so that they may see and know hope. We can change our corner of the world one light at a time. I leave you with this poem by Howard Thurman from his book, The Mood of Christmas. I will light candles this Christmas, candles of joy despite all the sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of courage for fears ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, candles of love to inspire all my living, candles that will burn all year long. Amen.